Hello. Welcome. Unfortunately, today this will be a solo podcast. The rest of the team, they weren't up for it. My wife in particular, but that's neither here nor there. Just gonna be me today. Just gonna talk about some weird shit. I guess without let's get after it. My son, he just turned 1 year old. 1 year. It's poor grammar. 1 year old. 1 year is a weird point, I feel like, weird point as a parent. It's the strangest time warp when you get to that 1 year point. It's the longest and the shortest year. You know, you look at pictures of your child when they were first born, and then you look at them in a year and you're just like, who is this? Like that is I don't know who took my child and just like swapped them out. It's also a weird point for just growth and development. You know, we had our doctor's appointment for him, the 1 year doctor's appointment. And that's a tough one. That one sucks ass. They give him they give him the old quad shot. You get giving a baby 4 shots in one go. I don't know. It's just a little aggressive, I feel like. I feel like there has to be a way to spread those out, because, the first one, they're like, what the fuck? Second one, screaming. Third and fourth is just absolutely losing their minds. They're just completely distraught for hours afterwards. And I feel like the only reason why you would need, this is, my professional medical opinion. I feel like the only reason why you would need to give them 4 shots in one go, why you wouldn't spread that out, I would have to say it has to do with money or something, the doctor's office can bill more for all 4 shots just in one go than, if you were to come back, more, infrequently. I don't know, but it's just a tough appointment where, he's getting jabbed 4 times in a row and just losing his mind. And I'm not an anti-vaxxer by any means. I think some of these vaccines are incredibly important, but I wonder how important some of the other ones are. It's just, and as a parent, I feel like if you don't at least, have that little question in your mind, then maybe you're a little crazy. But what is the risk? What is the risk factor? Because it's not zero. And you're obviously, you're the sole decision maker. The baby's not going to walk into the office and get himself the shots. And so it's, what's the risk? Is it, 1 out of 100,000? Is it 1 out of 1 million? Is it 1 out of 100 million? Because, even if it's not the vaccine that's going to hurt them, right? There's issues where, for example, with insulin, there have been many instances with insulin where, insulin itself is not dangerous. Everybody produces insulin. Everybody needs insulin to survive. But, for a type 1 diabetic, type 2 diabetic who has to take insulin, there have been instances where the insulin is contaminated with bacteria and people have to be hospitalized. People die from it. So, what's the possibility of that with, going out and getting your kid, a vaccine? And obviously there has to be other risk factors as well. This kind of, it's kind of like this strange, sort of, closed off mindset, regarding vaccines in general, I feel like, where you're not allowed to have any other opinion other than, you got to get them, which, you do have to get them. And, it's not necessarily something where it even matters whether what kind of opinion you have. It's like, if you don't get them, your kid's not going to public schools, not going to daycares. You can't travel sometimes without these vaccines, but, it was just that experience, that 1 year appointment, yesterday. He was just distraught, and you're, it just kind of crosses your mind. I feel like it has to cross everyone's mind. You're deliberately making a decision. You are causing your child pain, that's the decision that you make because you're assuming that the vaccine is going to be more beneficial. It's going to be beneficial. And sure, my son's 1 year old. He's probably not going to remember that. He's probably not going to be affected by it at all. But still, it's like just as a adult, as a parent, it I feel like it has to cross your mind. You are the sole decision maker, and you are deliberately agreeing to have this person cause your child pain. Once again, in the hopes that that's going to be beneficial, because Jesus, imagine if polio was, kids were just walking around getting fucking polio. That shit's wild. That shit's wild that even fucking exists. Polio. You can motherfuckers in the 50s were just going to school, coming home, and instantly paralyzed. Like, what the fuck is that? I don't know how big it ever was. I guess I have a phone right here. I could probably look and see how big polio. There was a big polio outbreak at some point. And it's like a very, very high mortality. Polio is fucked up, and it's in the 50s their solution was the iron lung. The iron lung is just kind of wild, where it literally just like breathes for you. Using like pressure or something. I'm not 100% sure. But, essentially, people are paralyzed from the neck down a lot of times, completely paralyzed. And they're putting these little capsules where it's literally just your head sticking out and the machine breathes for you. That's the only way that some of these people would survive. And, there's pictures from the 50s of just like rows of children, inside iron lungs, because they fucking caught polio. So that's obviously, that's awesome that, there's no fucking polio, dude. How about smallpox? Like, smallpox is the most deadly single, thing to humanity ever. It's the deadliest disease. More people have died from smallpox than all the wars put together, So smallpox is nasty. Pretty much the mortality rate for that is like, if you get it and you survive, you're good. But if you get it when you're a kid and you die, that's essentially just like how it was. Everybody would get smallpox, and hopefully you get it when you're a kid, you survive, and then you kind of immune to it, later on. And so obviously smallpox, deadliest disease in human history, eradicated using vaccines. But some of the shit that some of the vaccinations they give your kid at like 1 year old, I question like, how many, if this vaccine was just like removed, if they just said, we're not doing this anymore, how many people would be getting this, virus, how many people would be getting this disease, and how many people would be like, dangerously affected by it. Obviously this is just my thought, because I'm, once again, I'm in a doctor's office and I'm deliberately causing my son pain, and it's multiplied by the fact that I'm a bit of I have a little bit of a phobia of needles. Pretty ironic that I have a phobia of needles, and I'm a type 1 diabetic, but I have a phobia of needles, and so, I just feel it maybe worse than he does it, for some of these, and like I'm getting a little more hyped up about it than he is, because I don't like needles, and I'm like that sucks to be, a little kid, a little baby, and you got to get 4 shots all in one go. I mean, there's got to be some sort of like scientific stance here where, they're just like, all right, let's split it up 2 and 2, just 1 in one leg, 1 in the other, ow, that sucked. Let's go home. 4 in a row was just, once again, it's just so aggressive. And I just felt so bad for, like hours afterwards, leaving the doctor's office. And I'm just like, fuck, dude, like, there's got to be, you got to be able to fucking spread these out. That's just tough for a 1 year old to get 4 shots in a row. It's tough for fucking me, dude. If I walk into the doctor's office and they're like, yeah, we're gonna give you 4 shots, I'm gonna be like, fuck you, Mr. Doctor, sir. I'm gonna walk out of here. They're like, no, dude, if you don't get them, you're gonna die. I'll be like, I'll take my fucking chances. You're not giving me 4 shots, you asshole. Like 4 in a row. Like, where are you gonna put these? No, thank you. You're not giving me 4 fucking shots. I don't give a shit if that's like the, anti-aging serum. You're not giving me 4 of those. Not a chance, dude. I'll fucking age and die like a happy little boy. I'm not like, for a grown adult, Nobody's gonna tell me that you're a fucking adult. You're so brave. You're so courageous that you want 4 shots and you're just not gonna, you don't have a problem with it. 4 shots. You're a fucking liar. Stop lying to yourself. Nobody wants to do that. That shit sucks. But yeah, that was pretty horrific in my opinion. And I'll probably get some shit for just talking about this. I feel like I'll get some shit just for talking about this, but I won't hear any of the shit. I'm in my own little, soundproof echo chamber. Nobody can get in, nobody can get out. But I just feel like you should be able to have at least the ability to question it, because, once again, I haven't done any research. I've done very little research, let's say that, into, in terms of like the safety and whatnot. But, once again, just in the back of my head, I know that, with just my insulin, with just regular shots, there's a small chance that it's contaminated. That's, you could get a bacterial infection. That is an actual risk that, people have died, type 1 diabetics have died from taking insulin that's contaminated with bacteria. And pharmaceutical companies have been sued and lost for, billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. I know of one in particular, which is kind of fucked up, where, they essentially knowingly sold contaminated insulin, and, basically under the idea that, worst case scenario, somebody dies from this, but if we sell this batch, we'll make enough money from it, that any sort of, liability, we'll still make money. And they still did. I believe they paid out like a few $1 billion, but they made like $15 billion on it, so it was like, they were still essentially rewarded for their decisions, which is wild, but it's just interesting how, people will get on you. And it's like, I'm not saying that vaccines are bad. Like I said, there's obviously, thank God nobody's walking around getting fucking polio these days. That shit would be lame as fuck, to say the least. But, I feel like there should be room for at least, discussion. I recently, just because, once again, it was probably more traumatic for me as the parent than it was for Cortland. Like he was fucking fine today. He had like a little lump in his leg, but I did some research into just, what is it called? Essentially, the vetting, the quality control of these vaccines. And there's kind of a scary law that was passed in like the 80s, where pharmaceutical companies, for their vaccines, they cannot be held essentially liable for any damages from those, which is an interesting law, which I just kind of stumbled upon by chance here. If you have an extremely dangerous vaccine and you're giving it to people and they sue you, you can't be held liable. I don't know, just questionable, very questionable. When you have absolute immunity for something like that. But yeah, it's just like, it's a situation with, you get labeled as that like anti-vaxxer, which, I don't care if that's what I get labeled, because I'm not. But it's this almost cultist thinking. It's not like vaccinations are a cult because everybody fucking gets them. It's the biggest cult ever, if that's what it is. But just the inability to, maybe hear it out, see, okay, well, hey, this happened to this guy when he took this, was it that? Was it the vaccine? No, people are not willing to hear that. You're a fucking lunatic if, that's the connection that you're drawing. And that's just what goes through my mind when I'm getting my son 4 vaccines. I'm just like, what is the safety? What are the odds? What are the odds that, something bad would happen to him after taking this? So big, sort of milestone, 1 year for your child's life, but also a really horrible doctor's appointment. Can't recommend it. If you can send your spouse to do it, just send them alone. Because that shit sucks. On a lighter note, I was recently asked an important question, and for me in my travels as a father, I was asked a very important question. When your son is of age and, he's not just watching Miss Rachel all fucking day, because Miss Rachel's fucking American hero. She's the shit. what are you going to introduce to him first? Are you going to show him Lord of the Rings? Are you going to show him Harry Potter? Are you going to show him like superheroes? What are you going to show to him first? And for me, I feel like there's only one answer. And I mean, feel free to argue this. Feel free to, counter. I feel like it has to be Lord of the Rings. I feel like Lord of the Rings is the only one. They're all fantastical. They're all sci-fi, fantasy fiction. But I feel like Lord of the Rings teaches the best lessons. I feel like Lord of the Rings is like the most realistic. And that might be a stretch to call Lord of the Rings realistic, but motherfuckers taking the Ring of Power into Mordor to fucking defeat Sauron, I feel like it's just like an allegory for just life. It's just that's life. You're born, you're just a little boy, and Sauron's out there. He's always watching you. That fucking eye, dude. Sauron's watching you. Whoever you want to call it, right? Maybe it's the devil for you. But you got to get the Ring of Power. You're given that power, the one ring. It's so tempting. But you have to, fight temptation. You have to terminate. You have to destroy the ring. And at the end, I think probably spoiler. If you haven't watched Lord of the Rings yet, you fucking idiot. Why have you not watched it? Best movie series. Really, the book is amazing. I think this is only like my second solo podcast, but I think on my last one I had a book of the week. I'm gonna give my book of the week to fucking Lord of the Rings. It's 3 books technically, but you can buy just like the one compiled book. That's the one that I have. It's Lord of the Rings is just such a badass book. It is so amazing how Tolkien just he makes you like, it's a weird book in the sense that like, there's like the fight scenes, there's the drama, there's all the different factions, but something that really drew me in when I read it when I was a kid is it almost felt like cozy when I was reading the book. The book kind of felt like cozy. I felt like there were these scenes where all the characters would kind of like sit down and get to a place where like there's, the drama kind of goes into a lull. They're eating, they're in this, sort of like trance, sort of magical state before they go back into the fire, before they have to go back into these, sort of, up and downs of the drama, But that's my book of the week, fucking Lord of the Rings. But that's my answer, Lord of the Rings. Harry Potter, fucking Marvel movies. I'm a pretty big Harry Potter fan myself, but none of them hold a fucking candle to Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is just insanely badass. And if you haven't seen it, once again, what the fuck's wrong with you? 1 year, though, I feel like another thing that you want to start doing around that time, which I'm entirely ignorant of. Zach was just fucking playing the drums for me, and I was trying to do this. I was trying to play the fucking drums, and I feel like it's like that thing where you have to pat your head and rub your stomach at the same time, where it's like your fucking brain doesn't want to do both. You kind of have to like split your brain up. I could hit the same. I could hit like the same way with both arms, but like when it comes to like doing a pattern, a separate pattern with 2 different hands, 2 different arms, I feel like I'm just like a fucking idiot. Like my brain just could not do. I had to do the same thing with both hands, and obviously I've never fucking played the drums before, and Zach has. So, but that's something at 1 year I feel like is kind of important to introduce, is some sort of instrument. I want him to play an instrument. I always wanted to learn an instrument. I never had access to instruments, which is kind of a lie. I could have done band, but you just don't do band when you play sports. I mean, I guess you could, but it'd be problematic. It'd be difficult because you essentially practice at the same time. So, but no, I mean, I never had like any sort of musical influence in the house. Nobody had. There were no instruments in the house. Period. In my house, there was video games and TV and fucking shitty ass fast food and shit that gives you diabetes. But I'm not really sure what instrument to start him on. I feel like the piano is like a straightforward and an easy one. One that a baby could easily just like have fun on. Even, obviously he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, but he just smashes the keys. Like, hey, these keys make fucking noise, dude. That's sick. And, obviously over time you start to, once they're a little more malleable and you can tell them, hey, hit this one, and this one like this, and you can play a little tune, So I don't know how to play the fucking piano. I know a little bit about reading music and stuff like that. I know a little bit about the piano as an instrument and, the keys and the layout and stuff, but I've never taken my hand at really an instrument in general. I'm a beautiful singer for sure, but I feel like that just is just a God-given gift, just a beautiful voice. Learning how to, I feel like learning an instrument is like just, you got to grind that shit out, You got to fucking really just, you have to do it. Nobody's just good at fucking music right off the bat there. Nobody just fucking jumps on a piano and plays a fucking beautiful song. But that's something that I feel like at 1 year, I really want to introduce to them. And another thing, another language, I kind of come from like a bilingual household, although me and my siblings were not taught. And, granted, it's kind of understandable, my mother is from Italy. She speaks Italian and English. But it's not that fucking useful in, Central Florida. Like what, nobody fucking speaks Italian in Florida. So it's like, even if I was fluent in Italian, I don't know who to fucking talk to, so it's questionable, that'd be a questionable, obviously I wish I was taught young, because it's one of those things when you're taught young, it's just like a given, it's just easy. You just pick it up. You don't have to learn, I've studied a few different languages, and learning them just to a conversational, like a basic conversational point is, as an adult, so complicated, because when you learn it as an adult, it's not just this means that, this is a sentence, you just kind of enters your brain as a child, it's not like somebody's like hammering out fucking, maybe they are, but from what I understand, just that age from like 2 to like 6, 7, 8, like a child's language acquisition skill is just as high as it's ever going to be in their life. And then that kind of just falls off as you get older. And in my opinion, it gets more complicated, because when you're learning a language as an adult, you have to learn grammar. You have to understand verb conjugations, past, present, future tenses. You have to understand the function of, this word in relation to this word in a sentence. It gets incredibly complicated, because you have to understand all these intricate relationships that exist just naturally in any language. And, we take it for granted when we speak something, our native tongue, that, it's just super easy for us to formulate this because that's what you picked up when you were a child. You didn't have to learn fucking grammar. You didn't have to understand tenses. You just did. You just absorb it. And so, we've been talking about what language we want to teach Cortland, what language we think would be, the most beneficial. And we're settling on Japanese. That's pretty much where we were. I argued for Latin, language of the Romans, but apparently a dead language. My wife just couldn't get behind it. But we're gonna teach him Japanese. In fact, me and my wife have basically decided that we are gonna retire to Japan, the Japanese countryside. I know a little bit of Japanese. I understand the writing system. I definitely knew a lot more when I was taking, when I was actually studying it. But guess what? Nobody fucking speaks Japanese in Central Florida. At least not enough for me to be talking to them. And when you're listening to anime, when you're watching anime, I mean, it's like you don't really learn. It's like you're reading the subtitles. You're not really listening intently. For learning. But no, we're definitely going to teach. Cortland's. I'm getting back on my game with my Japanese studies, so that when we do retire, we might just move to Japan. I hear the exchange rate is very favorable. The U.S. dollar to the Japanese yen. I hear that you gain money essentially with that trade off, and it's also apparently really cheap to live in Japan. At least the Japanese countryside. You can obviously live in a place like Tokyo, and it's like the most expensive real estate on the planet Earth. But I'm not a city person. You know, I'm not into cities. Although I would love to fucking go to Tokyo. I have no interest in going to some place like New York City. I feel like I need like a fucking armrest over here. I have no interest in going to somewhere like New York City. I mean, I might go like one time, but like just the big cities stress me out. I don't want to be around that many people. I don't want to feel like, you know, squished together, like you can't get away from anybody. You know, much more, you know, take me out to the mountains or something that is way more relaxing. You have all this space, you know, just super chill. Cities are just like, I feel like just fucking stressful, psychotic almost, that you just stack people as close together like as humanly possible. And I mean, you know, most people have heard of this, but like the fucking real estate in Tokyo is like the most expensive in the world, and people literally live in like fucking capsules. You know, people basically rent these out for bare minimum monthly. You know, that's the whole idea, is the smallest amount of money you can possibly spend for somewhere to fucking sleep. But yeah, Japanese is probably where we're going. Japan is probably where we're gonna retire to. We're gonna get a little, you know, nice little Japanese place in the countryside. You know, they kind of hate foreigners over there. They're kind of fucking xenophobic in Japan. But I'm super chill. You know, once my son speaks perfect Japanese, and you know, they'll be happy about that. You know, they can respect that. You know, if some little white kid shows up randomly in, you know, some country village in Japan and speaks perfect Japanese, I feel like you got to respect that. Hopefully I'll speak perfect Japanese at that point as well. Pretty much all I know is how to say hello. You know, if I started my studies up seriously, I could pick it back up pretty quick. I used to be at least somewhat conversational. You know, be able to order food, read a menu, get around. You know, on like this, you know, the Japanese, you know, public transportation system, and just basic conversational things. You know, check out at a restaurant, or you know, pay for something. You know, really rudimentary stuff, just so that you can get around. At this point, I just know how to say hello, and you know who the members of my family are, and I don't even know how to really say that at this point, because it's been so long since I've said that the members of my family have changed, and I don't remember what the word for wife and son is. Yeah, no, I can't fucking remember that. Yeah, definitely some learning to do, but Japanese would be entirely useless for my son unless he moves to Japan, unless we actually do get to retire to Japan. I pushed for Latin. You know, I'm certain that the Roman Empire will rise again. So when they do, they're not going to be speaking Japanese. The Romans are going to be speaking fucking Latin. And that's another one that I studied for a little while. And I feel like Cortland needs it. Cortland needs Latin. That's a strong, aggressive language, which is entirely useless because nobody speaks it. And yeah, maybe we go with Japanese. Maybe we stick with Japanese. He can get some nice Japanese lady. I'll probably at least gives him some career opportunities. It's a pretty large, you know, there's like 300 million people in Japan who speak Japanese. Speaking of Japanese, I've been doing some TV lately, and god damn it, dude, if I can make a show of the week, if I can make a show recommendation, Shogun on Hulu. Good God, dude, what a fucking show. They really did that one right. It's like fucking Japanese Game of Thrones. I mean, you cannot go wrong. And I think I'm going to have to wrap up here because it's about 30 minutes now. 30 minutes is a good time to wrap up, don't you think? Oh, it's raining. Okay, so it's raining. They were walking, so I'm going to wrap up here. Oh, damn. Took a little step there. Goodbye. Oh shit.